You may have seen headlines like these: the end of Google search, the fall of a 25-year monopoly. Google is no longer sending users to other websites. Instead, it is placing AI-generated answers at the top. Is this just a product update? Or is it a dangerous move that puts at risk the very model that generates 80% of Google's revenue? Experts say that within just 2 years, up to 25% of global search traffic could disappear. And internally, Google already knew what this shift could lead to. While millions of websites are losing up to 60% of their traffic overnight, what exactly is Google doing? Multiple data points are already pointing in the same direction. As AI chatbots expand, traffic flowing into traditional search engines is expected to decline significantly. Users are spending more time on the search page itself, but the path to the original sources is disappearing. And in some cases, the impact is even more extreme. An independent product review site in the United States, HouseFresh, lost 91% of its search traffic in a single day after a change in Google's algorithm. Years of original content, built through hands-on testing, are now summarized in seconds by AI, while the creators lose their revenue and face shutdown. This is not just an isolated case. The foundation of the internet economy is beginning to erode. Regulators are starting to take notice. Some have even called this digital extraction, and investigations have begun. If content creators can no longer make money, new content will stop being created. And at that point, the internet begins to dry up. In the future of search that Google is building, the role of those who create information is slowly disappearing. To understand why Google is making what looks like a self-destructive move, you have to look at the fear they are facing right now. Inside Google, by late 2022, with the arrival of ChatGPT, a code red was already declared. For the first time in 25 years, their search empire was at risk of being shaken. What is pressuring Google is not just technology, it is something deeper. User behavior is changing. Especially among Gen Z and younger users in the United States, people are no longer searching on Google. Instead, they are finding answers on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. They are not starting with search anymore. They are starting with content. And at the same time, new players are emerging. Perplexity is flipping Google's model upside down. Instead of listing endless links, it delivers a single, refined answer. And ChatGPT is no longer just a chatbot. It is becoming a real-time information system that can replace search. The problem is simple. If people stop searching, Google's ads disappear. So Google had to make a choice. Protect the old model and risk becoming irrelevant, or break its own structure to keep users. What we are seeing now is not pure innovation, a response to lost attention and lost trust. And to survive, Google is now eroding its own model from within. Right now, Google is holding on by cutting into its own structure. And honestly, I am in a similar situation. This channel currently has 114 subscribers. I need your help. If you subscribe now, you can become one of the early members of this channel. Google's new monetization strategy is extremely dangerous. They have now started inserting ads directly inside AI-generated answers. In May 2024, this change was formalized. And it is not just about showing ads. It is about turning the AI's conclusion itself into a product. For example, if you ask, what is the most durable hiking shoe? In the past, you would see dozens of review websites. But now, it is different. The AI summarizes the data and places a specific product at the top. The problem is, you can no longer tell whether that result is objective or sponsored. Users now have no way to verify that boundary. About 80% of Google's revenue comes from search advertising. That is more than $170 billion a year. And in a world where every click matters, Google has started embedding sponsored placements inside AI answers. The line between information and advertising is beginning to disappear. And this creates a deeper problem. This structure makes users more controllable. Some critics argue that Google is turning into a massive advertising system powered by AI. At this point, Google's AI is no longer just an information tool. It is becoming a system that delivers the most effective ads based on user intent. Objectivity, once the core of search, is being pushed into the background, and in its place, capital is taking over. Right now, Google is consuming its most valuable asset, trust. Now we need to look at the most critical side effect. When Google takes traffic away from creators and pushes them out of the market, the internet stops producing new information. And that empty space is eventually filled by data generated by AI. And this is where model collapse begins. Model collapse is what happens when AI starts learning from its own outputs instead of human-created data. Over time, its intelligence and reasoning begin to degrade. In actual experiments, when AI systems were trained repeatedly on their own generated data, it only took a few generations for information to become distorted and meaning to break down. What remains is not accurate knowledge, but contaminated data. This phenomenon is often referred to as Habsburg AI. A system that relies only on its own data, with no external input, gradually degenerates. This is no longer a theory, it has already begun. And if this structure collapses, there will be no new data left for AI to learn from. The entire system that once supplied knowledge will stop. What we are seeing now is not just a trend, it is a structural failure. Creators produce data, Google distributes traffic. AI learns from it. That balance is now breaking. And as it breaks, the entire ecosystem begins to stall. It is like a librarian burning down the library and then trying to find answers inside it. There is nothing left. We are now moving beyond the age of search and into the age of answers. Google once grew on a simple promise: to organize the world's information and make it accessible. But now, it is beginning to break those connections itself. To protect its $2 trillion value, Google has chosen not coexistence, but control. Convenience has increased, but so has the cost. The more we rely on summarized answers, the less we question, verify, and think for ourselves. As creators disappear, what remains is data generated by AI and outcomes selected by capital. Google's dominance may be weakening, but the players trying to replace it are moving in the same direction. In the end, the choice is ours. And that shift is already moving in a direction that may be impossible to reverse. The library is disappearing. The librarian has changed roles. And right now, we are watching that transformation happen. If you want to see more stories like this, check out the video on your screen. I will see you in the next one.